Hello, everyone. Welcome to the post-lunch session. I know we're all nice and full and maybe a bit sleepy, so let's try to get our energy up and get ready for this very, very exciting panel that Dr. Tatiana Karabchuk has set up for us on behalf of F.O.R.M. And we have a very interesting set of speakers who will be joining us. We have our moderator and all of our speakers with us. So without further ado, I'm just here to let you know we're starting. If our moderator can come up or you have a mic, so just do your thing. And we're going to start. Thank you, everyone.
Well, hello, everyone. Salam alaikum, and welcome to the first session in the afternoon. If you hope you had an enjoyable lunch, a great morning, and if it's nap time after lunch, then there's still coffee available outside. I think we have all had our coffees and we're ready to go. So thank you so much for being here. I'm Glenn Muschert. I am the professor of sociology and chair of social sciences at Khalifa University. So I would like to thank Dr. Tatiana for organizing this session and bringing together some of my favorite people from the academic world here in the UAE. I'll just briefly introduce the folks, starting with the colleague to my right. We have Dr. Saad, who is the Director of Social Research at the Abu Dhabi Department of Community Development. He is also an academician in psychology. Next, we have Dr. Ali Shahada. He's a professor of applied linguistics and curriculum instruction and the College of Education at UAE University. So welcome, Dr. Ali, Professor Ali. We have also Dr. Bronwyn Wood, who is Associate Professor of Innovation, Technology, and Entrepreneurship in the School of Business at UAE University. So welcome, Doctor, as well. Next, we have Aizhan Shomotova, who is a faculty instructor in the College of Interdisciplinary Studies at Zayed University. Very welcome, very happy to have you today as well. And finally, we have Professor Habibul Knondker, who is, last but not least, he's professor of social sciences at Zayed University. So thank you very much and welcome. So I wanted to, this is a panel that is focusing on human capacity building in the UAE from people who work in academics and research within the UAE. To set the stage, the UAE is a rapidly developing country. You see everywhere you go, you see things being built. Right? Literally, you see things being built. If you're here on Saadiyat Island, you came as little as 7 years ago. I think there was really just very little here, right? And so now you see all these, the Louvre and the Abrahamic houses and all of these things that are coming up, as well as these hotels and things, right? However, what you also don't see as much is the human capital development. And this is really where we're working in the education sector and in the research sector, is about bringing this capacity to fruition and building it here on shore in the UAE. Okay, so the purpose of today is to talk. Thank you. The purpose of today is to talk about the how we're going to build this human capacity and to hear from our participants. So I have some questions that I would like to ask, and just in turn ask each of you to give your thoughts. You don't have to, each person doesn't have to respond to every question if you don't want to, so you can pass to the person next to you. After that, I hope to have some time for questions from our audience who's live, and then also we have an online audience, and we have the opportunity to take some questions from them as well. Okay, so without any further ado, let's start, and I'll start at this end if you don't mind. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Saad, what are some strategies, programs, or initiatives that your organization is instituting to build human capacity?
Hi. Thank you, first of all, Dr. Glenn, for that wonderful introduction. Just to reiterate, I'm from the Department of Community Development here in Abu Dhabi. When it comes to human resources, we consider it as our main focus and our main resource of development throughout the year. In terms of strategy, being a government entity, we mostly focus on training. So less in an academic sense, more in a professional development sense. We assess the needs of the employees throughout the year, specifically at the beginning and the first quarter. And based on this assessment, we design strategies and initiatives to fulfill these needs. Of course, we are always trying to talk to line managers, to business owners, to department heads on what are the requirements of their employees. And once we identify these requirements, we try to identify the best provider, whether it's from the academic world or from the professional world, to provide this training. That's about it.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ali?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the question, Dr. Glenn. I can focus on the graduate programs. Like Dr. Glenn mentioned, I am associated with the College of Education at the UAE University, and I'm coordinator of the Master of Education program. We have a very strong master's program. We have over 150 master's students in the program and over 50 doctoral students. And our program is quite linked to the national goals, Minister of Education goals, and the policy goals of education within the UAE in terms of sustainable development, in terms of research, including space research, and connecting our teaching and our research with these goals. In particular, we look at how to disseminate knowledge at the level of the UAE and beyond. So really our students, when they graduate and they conduct research, their research has direct applications and implications for the UAE context and beyond, including the Gulf countries and beyond the Gulf countries. And so whatever they do has to do with teaching, with learning and leadership and administration. So it is not theoretical research. Of course, it has theoretical background foundation, but it has a practical end. So, and our students, once they graduate, they continue to publish. I'm very happy to say that our master's students and doctoral students, they conduct research not only to pass the degree, that is a requirement, definitely, but much more importantly, to see the visibility and the applicability of their research into what people do on the ground, in the classroom, in administration, and they follow up that on for their doctoral research and even for postdoctoral research. One final thought on this one, I'm happy to say as well that the UAE is focusing more and more on creating this national capacity, national local students and doctoral students. And we have a program, we are coordinating with the Minister of Education for some of our distinguished doctoral students who graduated recently within the last 2 years to get a scholarship to conduct research, postdoctoral research in some of the top universities in the world, so that they come back and disseminate that knowledge which they obtained from their doctoral, master's and doctoral program degrees and from wherever they were seconded to conduct research. So really linking the local and international context to make it more sustainable, more applicable, and more generalizable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. Dr. Bronwyn, you're working in this space, which is about innovation and entrepreneurship, but specifically focusing on gender dynamics as well. I would wonder if you would comment on how from your role and your position, you're working to build this human capacity in the UAE.
Hi everyone, Assalamu alaikum. I'm an associate professor of marketing at UAEU, but our department is marketing and entrepreneurship. So my own research is mostly lately about women's entrepreneurship, especially Emirati women. And most of our students are women, female students, and of course most of our students are Emiratis. So we're very interested in capacity building capacity building our students in terms of supporting them with our research. We're quite a research active college, and a lot of our research is around, I suppose, informing and supporting the policies that the government already have in place for entrepreneurship, but also for other aspects of diversification in the economy, like, you know, turning towards the knowledge economy. We have a lot of, we're trying to increase our capacity in this regard as well. We have a new entrepreneurship research centre, and we're trying to work a lot with students on sort of practical training backed up by theoretical training. I mean, we're still a university, so we do focus on the theoretical, but to build them up so that they can maybe, even if pulling students from all across the university and introducing them to the entrepreneurial mindset, as they call it, but trying to help them realize how they could commercialize some of their ideas. The students have a lot of ideas. I mean, they're really inspiring in their ideas, but of course, like everything, there's a big gap between having an idea and making it really happen. So we work a lot with that, and we try to support the students, especially there's a lot of capacity for the girls, because we've got a lot of girl students, and they work really hard. They're really interested in I don't know, sort of autonomous management. They're interested in this sort of thing, and they work really well together as well in their different the different ideas that they suggest. So we try to give them, we try to help them see how they could commercialize. It doesn't have to be like today, but what they'd need to know, or what they'd need to follow up in terms of training or study to be able to commercialize ideas they had, or to bring something to market, you know. And our research is to support this as well, how it would be better, how we could suggest changes or supports through the government to help them with this, to try and support the general pitch of the economy towards knowledge economy. And I feel like the whole college does that, not just our department, or, you know, we're really interested in this and in the employability of our students, even if they're not employed in a company, but self-employed. Yeah. So I don't know, to try to expand the way that they think about opportunity, so that they can recognize it, and so that they can pursue it, so that it's of benefit to them, you know, like personally, and also, I mean, possibly commercially, but definitely personally, and how they think about not just business, but, you know, life. Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're all trying to work towards this, making this contribution to the capacity of the students.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Aizhan, I'm wondering, you have so many broad interests. One of the areas that you're focusing on in your research is on career development and development of skills. You're working now in a very innovative environment, and so I wonder if you would comment a little bit about the role of this sort of innovation in education and how that helps the students in terms of building their capacity.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, I work now at the College of Interdisciplinary Studies. It's relatively new college, and they offer interdisciplinary programs. So it's really important to highlight that nowadays, every year, the set of skills that are required by employers and the companies changing so fast, right? This is a volatile, uncertain, ambiguous experience for everyone. And higher educational institutions, definitely they face challenges to prepare students, right, with the right skill sets, especially in this very fast-moving and growing economy. That's why it's really important to highlight that interdisciplinary is the key word probably nowadays, when students can not be specialized in just one major, but to be specialized in number of majors that interdisciplinary connected within the program. So by the end of the graduations, after 4 years, imagine undergraduate programs, they might find not just any job, but they can be prepared for any job with the different number of skill sets. They can graduate, be employable, be confident, and be knowledgeable of multiple disciplines and select their major. Also, currently at the college, what we do, we have mentorship programs where we collaborate directly with industries. We have partners mentors from the big companies such as Al-Futtaim and so on, and they work with our students during their coursework. So as a project, as a final project, and it's amazing opportunity for students because from the first year of their undergraduate programs, they can understand what are requirements of those big companies, what the company not just require with the specific job position, but what they need to expect at the workplace. Okay, how to do, what to do. It's just basic skills such as communication, presentation or negotiation and so forth. So that's the purpose of all the programs of the interdisciplinary college. And they, starting from the first year, they build upon all those skill sets that are provided at different year with a different number of skills. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Professor Habibul, you have a perspective that spans the globe, having worked in the U.S., in Canada, in Singapore, Japan, and being based in the UAE. So you have this perspective I'd like to ask you about, which is how do you see the role in the UAE as it's situated in the world, and the role of human capacity development as we're doing it in education and the research sector?
Thank you very much, Glenn, for asking me an easy question, because all the other questions are rather difficult and challenging. The easy question is sometimes tricky. I keep asking my students that why don't you want to be world famous scientist? Why don't you want to be CEO of Google? Because I see a lot of discussions about employability of our graduates in ADNOC and other prestigious institutions in UAE. And I keep telling them that you have to go beyond that. I want you to be the Secretary General of the United Nations. They laugh. I say, don't laugh, because you can be the person if you work hard, if you have the motivation, if you take it as a challenge, if you identify that as a goal. So your goal is not ADNOC. Your goal is United Nations. Your goal is World Health Organization. And then they get excited. And I can tell you, with no reservation, that I have students. I've been teaching here for 17 years now. I have seen students and their capability. I have students that no one took them seriously. The same student went to Cambridge, came back, and heading an important institution in UAE. I have met those students. I have worked with those students. So what our students need is a lot of mentoring, and mentoring beyond university days. So I am on WhatsApp with many of my former students. Sometimes they ask me, can you help me write this paper I'm writing for a certain government department that I cannot name? But in any case, we need to do that. We need to nurture the talents that we already have. Now, what I find interesting in UAE, and I have to be frank about it, that we have not been able to create a culture of research that I have seen in US. US has plenty of that. Canada has plenty of that. Singapore has a lot of that, and they have built it up from bottom up. And I was part of that process in National University of Singapore, where I taught for 20 years. So I've seen that, how a culture can be created where it didn't exist. And I think UAE is full of potentials and absolutely amazing students I have, very talented, very smart. What they lack is a little bit of push, a little bit of motivation, and what they lack is a broad culture. And I'm very happy to report that I see that culture is flowering. Every time I come to NYU talk, which is free and they have good snacks, good reasons for come, and I see a couple of my students in the audience that they make the trip to come to NYU talk and listen to, great minds that they invite. So the culture is flowering, and I'm very grateful that, and I've seen that, what's happening in the UAE, because I came here in 2006, and last 17 years, UAE has done absolutely wonderful things in infrastructure development, in educational infrastructure, with Khalifa University, with NYU. And I've also seen the growth of UAE University in terms of ranking. They're doing amazing work in research. And they're the top institutions in the Middle East now, UAE University, Khalifa University, and so on. And I wish my university, Zayed University, was there, but inshallah in the future. But thank you very much for giving me that opportunity to share my ideas.
Thank you so much, Prof. I want to point out, just to echo one thing, is that the members of the panel here are working in the areas that are most concerned with the social and human development. So we have entrepreneurship, we have education, we have social sciences, and this is so. I would say that we're more developed in this country in terms of STEM education, science and technology, than we are in terms of these other areas. But that's part of what attracts those of us who come here and want to stay for some time, that this is an opportunity to make a contribution. Now, if I can start again with another question, would say, Dr. Saad, how do you see the role of open research as relevant with what you do at the Abu Dhabi government in the research capacity? So this forum is all about open research. We're talking about open data, open source, open access, and such. And so would you please comment on how you see that working in the public sector from a government perspective?
Okay, so this time you gave me a challenging question. Just trying to think about it, usually open and government, putting those two words together, it's always a little bit tricky because it depends on the context. Now, when it comes to government work, lots of the work is considered internal rather than made for publication. So when it comes to higher education or the academic world, the main intention is always publication. But in government entities, we focus on internal publication because usually what is on the line is the policy that has to be developed, an initiative that has to be rolled out. So open research at this point, it is on the horizon of government entities, and you can see it with many entities adopting open data policies. But when it comes to open research policies, we are still taking confident and firm steps towards that, because in the end, we have a belief that information should be available for everyone. But the current situation is that it is still in a very growing stage. And as I mentioned, the reason is that most of the research done by government is serving a specific purpose, a specific need. There's like a specific crisis going on, and we need some kind. The policymaker needs some kind of evidence to come to the right decision. So open doesn't usually go well with speed. So at this stage, as I mentioned, we are in a growing stage when it comes to open research, and that is just my perspective. However, the open data policies have been strong, and we are following the global practice in this direction as well.
Thank you so much. Professor Ali, from your perspective, what is the role of importance of open science and open research?
Thank you very much. I gave seminars and workshops on research and open research for the last 15, 17 years. And I think this is a very important issue, very important question, because quite often people, we and others, in particular, graduate students and novice researchers, think open research is pay and get published. And that is absolutely risky and absolutely wrong. However, whether we like it or not, many people are doing that. In particular, graduate students and novice researchers. Open research shouldn't be easy research to publish. It is not a matter of money. And of course, I'm not talking about predatory publishing. I've been talking about predatory publishing for the last 15, 17 years or even more. I was editor of 2 international journals for 12 years. And in the editors meeting every year for that TESOL International Association, we held a meeting, the editors meeting to talk about, editorial stuff and things like that, a number of editors. And open research was one of the issues, and pay and get published is another issue. I've been talking a lot locally and internationally that open research should be quality research, whether you pay or not. And I think this needs to change. I'm very happy that it's changing. I say to my colleagues, and only 4 days ago, I gave a workshop at the Canadian University in Dubai, and 2 weeks from now, I'm giving a similar but somehow different workshop at Aizhan University, again, for the same thing on open research and on getting published, saying that the road to publishing is not easy one, it is difficult one, but it is doable. It is not to publish 3 or 5 or 10 papers within 3 months and 5 months and throw them away. They have no weight, they have no value. One good paper after 6 months or 1 year is much better than 5 papers that have no value. So really open research, we need to know that open research, it is not easy. It is not a matter of pay and get published. Really, it has value just like any other research. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Bronwyn, from the perspective of a person working in the entrepreneur and innovation space, what is the role of open information, open source, open code, open data, and so on in this space?
This is difficult, right? Yeah. Okay, so from the perspective of innovation, it's risky to have things really open. And of course, it's commercially sensitive in lots of cases. So, this is a consideration as well. But I mean, everybody knows, even if they don't like to accept it, that synergistic approaches are the ways that everybody advances. So it's really important that things are available. And it's especially important, I think, for, I mean, there's great swathes of the world that are completely excluded from newer findings or newer information by paywalls from journals. And this is a problem because there's a lot of people who are not very well resourced financially, but very well resourced intellectually, and then there's a gap. So we all miss out if people can't participate, and it's a problem. In the case of our university, in our college, we have a working paper series. This is open, and it's really good because we're encouraged to make available our findings. I mean, at earlier stages usually. The research office helps us to publish things open access in the normal journals, and we also always ask for this in our grant funding for money for this dissemination, to try to make our research more available, and it makes it more relevant. I mean, because then more people can say, oh, that's kind of interesting, but I think you've made a terrible error here, or, this is really good. I mean, this is how we all move forward. So I think that's important. And from the journal side, if I can talk from the journal side, I'm involved in several journals. At the moment, I'm the interim editor-in-chief for the International Journal of Gender and Entrepreneurship, and we receive lots of papers from all over the place, and we have a wide scope so that we will receive papers from all over the place about gender, not just women, but we do receive mostly papers about women's experience of entrepreneurship. We, like all journals for Emerald, and I suppose for the other publishers, it's possible to pay for open access, but it's quite expensive. And so individual researchers, even from well-resourced universities, I mean, you wouldn't even consider paying this yourself. You need to have support from your institution. And I think that similarly, in entrepreneurship especially, publishing practical kind of papers is not necessarily going to get you the same traction academically, but so important. And practitioner sort of perspectives being sought are really important, because entrepreneurship is, at the same time as it can be an innovative or sort of abstract set of skills, it of course needs to be practical as well. So there has to be a balance between these sort of the operations of journals and the operations of academic institutions with industry to make all of this happen. Like, it has to be an interlinked situation, as Aizhan was talking about. I mean, we have to take the benefit from each of these, and it's really a good idea to make, as much as we can, things public so that everybody can benefit from the steps that others are taking or the models that they're following. Yeah, so I think, I mean, I'm a great supporter of open research. I think it's beneficial for everybody, for the people who write it, for the people who read it, for the people who criticize it. I think it's really, really useful, and so much more useful to all of us. I mean, as you know, societies, than paywalled. Yeah. Thank you.
Doctor, may I follow up with one question and ask you okay, so I've heard from the government perspective and from the private sector's perspective, there may be kind of concerns with the openness, right? And so it's really the academicians who work in that kind of third space, this academic space, who are like, yes, we want all of this to be open, right? Would you comment sort of like about, from the academic perspective, like, what would you say are the opportunities that are missed if we don't have access to public data, say government databases or proprietary data? Would you please comment on that?
Yeah, I think that for academics, access to data is absolutely essential. And if we can't get it, it makes everything we do weak, because we need it, right? We have to have it. And it's so useful. A lot of my colleagues publish huge data sets, like in Europe, and they're really able to make significant comment on policy, make significant contributions to you know, people who are making policy decisions. They can really show, you know, shine lights on things, and they can really make a contribution. And if we can't get data, we can't do that. So then we're forced to have tiny little data sets, you know, like a small set of interviews or something. So it's difficult to generalize from this, and it might be useful and interesting, and people might be interested, but it's difficult to make a case for generalizability from this, you know, from my 30, you know, Emirati women who I interview about entrepreneurship, the problems they face, the difficulties that they might find registering their business or reaching internationalization status, or, you know, any of the points that they might raise. Whereas, of course, if I had the government data of, you know, business registrations, this would make a huge difference. It would support what I did. You know, it would support, we would be able to triangulate our data then, because we would have metric data, and we would have personal data, and we would have data of students coming through, and it would make the whole thing like a rich fabric, which we can't have if the data is not available.
Thanks so much for following up on that. Now, Dr. Aizhan, wanted to ask your perspective on, say, the students, say undergraduate students and postgraduate students. Do they feel like it's possible for them to access research or to be participants in research? Or I'm playing with this word of open, right? We're talking about open access, we're talking about open source, open code, and things like that. Yeah. But do they feel, our students, do they feel that research is something that is open, that is accessible for them, that they can have a role in, or they as consumers, as producers? And would you please comment on that?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I was preparing for that. All right. So actually, I wanted to highlight the issue that today, in the era of ICT and artificial intelligence development, right? What we have so much information that is open, right? And it's not too hard to find an answer. So why do we want to have open access? We want to disseminate the knowledge, right, that produced by scholars, produced by scholars, high quality results, right? Get insights from those studies. And it's really important that we as educators highlight this to our students. We increase the awareness that kids, whatever information you find from the internet, you cannot just trust, right? We should teach our students how to identify which information is trustworthy, the sources of those publications, who is the publisher, what's the journal, what's the website. And when we give them assignments, we always ask them to check on sources. And especially nowadays when they use this ChatGPT, they ask the questions and it produces so many answers with the references that are not correct. And nobody checks on that, right? And especially students, they might not be aware. They think, this is an AP style reference. What do you want from me? Right? So we, as educators, we are responsible for letting know and teaching students, okay, how to use open access journals and why we want those studies, articles, research to be open, not just how to make a reference in APA style, but as well how they can access and use it, not just for the assignments, but in the future during their workplaces. If they're going to come up with a policy, if they're going to come up with a good report, they need to know where to access, what sources, and how to do that. I mean, that will create a habit of, understanding the knowledge, the essence of the knowledge, the high quality knowledge. And yeah, I think we're all responsible together in this. And inshallah, we will do our best, right? Informing our students on how to use open access research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor, I wanted to ask you if you would please give your perspective on the status of the UAE as it stands with terms of open research in relationship to the region in which we live, but also in relation to the world. Now, what are the strengths we have? What are the areas of opportunity for development that we can move forward?
When it comes to open access, I'll have to say two things. That we talk a lot about democratization of knowledge. Now, when it comes to open access, this is it. Because suddenly we don't talk about patents, we don't talk about all these barriers of knowledge. We are removing the barriers for two reasons. One, and here a very famous American sociologist, Robert Lind, wrote a book 50 years ago, more than that, 60 years ago. He wrote a book, and the title of the book was Knowledge for What? Why do we produce knowledge? And if knowledge is not for the public, knowledge is not for the welfare of humanity, that knowledge is of no use. And I realized that when I was part of a book, we did a book during the COVID crisis on COVID, and suddenly I realized that any article that has something to do with COVID is automatically open access. So I searched PubMed and all the prestigious databases. Everything related to COVID was open access. And we could write that book because of that open access, accessibility of the information. Three of us wrote the book, one in California, one in Korea, one here in Abu Dhabi. And we could do that because of open access opportunities that we got with COVID-related publications. Now, from the UAE point of view, we're still in an infancy, if I'm pragmatic in terms of research and development in high science areas. So we are consumers of research. So we are at the receiving end of information. So the open access has huge benefit for us, for our young scholars, our students, our PhD students. They cannot give an excuse, sir, I cannot find the book in the library. Okay, library is not enough. You have open access journals. Go talk to the librarian. And as Ayman was saying, that we have many open access sources now, not only ChatGPT, but many of the encyclopedias are open access, So I ask my students that don't look at just Wikipedia. Sometimes Wikipedia can be very useful if you look for biography, things like that. But for philosophy, look at Stanford University of Philosophy, which is open access. And I fully agree with you that sometimes we have to play the role of traffic police, just guide the traffic. Just guide them, send them where they should go. I mean, there's so much in this age of information revolution, there's a data overload, there's an information overload. So as educators, as teachers, our role would be to guide the students that do not look at just one source, triangulate it, look at other more verifiable source, and tell me where did you get this information from? Get it from internet, but tell me the database, the source you found useful, and then we'll validate that, yes, this is a legitimate source. So from the UAE point of view, I think we need to acknowledge that we are still at the receiving end of knowledge. We are not producing cutting edge scientific knowledge. Maybe some projects at Khalifa University are doing that. I'm not forgetful of that. But on the whole, our students, especially if I'm talking on behalf of my students, we are still at the receiving end. So we need to sort out what source to look at and where to find what information. I just saw a brilliant essay in Journal of Contemporary China. So I asked our librarian whether you have the journal, and it's not open access. So we have to find ways of how to, navigate through, different barriers and get that journal available to my students, because we are dealing with subjects that have just been published in that journal, Modernization of China and Modernization Theory and so on. So the point is that there's a lot that can be done with proper mentoring and proper tutoring that we need to do to our students. And they're very smart when it comes to technology, when it comes to internet. So they need a little bit of assistance, and we can have miracles. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. And would like to follow up. Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up. The point here, if we look at this from practical point of view, when as a student, I go and try to find information, and we do teach them, right, how to use Google Scholar, how to use library databases, and they do type the keywords, but then suddenly they see the article that might have relevant information is closed, okay? And that, it stops them because they don't want to go and, ask from the library to get me this journal or to subscribe to the journal and so forth, because it's challenging kind of for students, especially. We know we've been through that as scholars as well, right? When we need really the right article. So what they do, they go and find other resources that are easy to access. So the internet, AI tools and so forth. So probably here it's really important to highlight when open research needs to be considered and can really improve, human capacity building for our future generations.
Thank you so much. I'm wondering, can we start down at the other end and come this way, if you don't mind, back to Prof. Habibul. I'm wondering, what do you see as some very promising channels or opportunities for youth in the UAE to work in academia and also research more generally?
I would say very frankly that we are at a stage one. 17 years ago, when I came to UAE, we didn't have that many academic institutions that we have today. And we now have the academic infrastructure in this country. We have wonderful institutions emerging. And second stage is how to motivate our students to pursue higher degrees, masters and PhD and beyond. How do we do that? We have achieved the first stage. So they're doing and they're getting opportunities for excellent undergraduate education in all these universities that we have between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. In the next stage, how do we create that? Now, here again, I would suggest the Singapore model. What Singapore model was that they would hire not undergrad, but the students who have finished their masters, they will appoint them as lecturers. And then the university would send them to a handful of recognized top-class universities of the world. So if you look at Singapore University website, most of the lecturers, assistant professors have degrees from Ivy League or from Oxford and Cambridge. And I think it's important to target top-level universities for top-level Emirati students because they deserve that. They do not deserve less. So if we could have such programs that we recruit them and we motivate them that go for higher studies and your job is here. We are protecting your job. So you come back and you take your job in an academic institutions or in a research institution. They would be motivated because they care for jobs. They care for high, prestigious jobs, with decent pays. If we can assure that, we can start building the human resource that we need to build, who will play a big role in science and research development in this country. But we need to be focused and we need to do some targeting. Unless we do that, if we leave it to the open market, laissez-faire, students will pursue their degrees and they'll be lost in the thicket of corporate world and the complicated world they live in. So we won't find them, where they are. So I think we need to do some careful planning and targeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Aizhan, I'm wondering, what is your perspective on do young people in the UAE want to work in academics and other research positions?
Okay, yeah. So definitely, I mean, traditionally, when we think about research, we think, okay, research is expected to be taught only in graduate programs, some master programs, and then PhD programs. But I think we need to change this thinking, let's say, because just recently, I've been collaborating on research on employability and employment. And we used LinkedIn and we tried to analyze different job positions. And probably you noticed yourself that number of job positions they require and expect candidates to have data analysis skills, to know how to analyze the data, to know how to use different analytical tools, right? As well, to know how to collect data, all right? So, and those, and these job positions are expected to be occupied by bachelor graduates, not just master graduates. So probably we need to start and teach our students not just within master programs, but earlier during their undergraduate programs. So research skills are essential skills. It's not just how you can access the research and read it and understand it, but as well data collection skills, data analysis skills, data research methodology skills, right? Those are important to be studied during the undergraduate program. So students are aware, and when they come to the workplace, they are confident again. They know what to do. Definitely, probably will not be enough, and they need to continue with their master programs where they can, develop professionally and personally, but already the potential revolution, let's say, started within undergraduate programs. But in general, there are lots of opportunities for students in terms of research assistantship, scholarships, and fellowships. But we need to encourage more of those opportunities across the higher educational institutions, especially probably increase a number of research grants, so students can participate in those opportunities from their undergraduate programs. They become a research assistants or teaching assistants earlier to practice these research skills.
Thank you so much.
If I
Dr.
may
Saad,
interject, Dr. Glenn. So part of the issue here is that research is still being seen, because going back to the question was, are there any Emiratis willing to go into research as a profession, right? So part of the issue here is that research is not seen as a profession yet. It is seen as a skill that is a subset of an existing profession. Like, for example, like a sociologist, can you do research? That is part of your skill set. So it is only with very recent efforts from UAEU that we see a distinct program directed towards applied social research, for example. Now you can expect industry players to slowly change their perspective and adjust the existing positions to be revolving around specifically research. And when I say positions, I mean employable positions. So it is tying it to an earlier point by Dr. Habibul about the culture of research. It is slowly growing, and this conference, for example, is a big component of that. Having this novel program at UAEU is also a big component of that. The more we develop this culture of research, the more interested the population would be into going into the field as a profession. But right now, from my own experience, from my own anecdotes, it is not seen as a viable career path yet. But we're changing that. We're slowly moving towards introducing it to the young minds as a viable and a rewarding career path. So I just wanted to bring that to the table.
Indeed. Thank you so much. And Dr. Bronwyn, from your perspective, you're dealing with young people, many aspiring to become entrepreneurs and innovators. Are they also interested in working in academics and working as researchers?
Okay, so I find when I teach the students, they're really interested in research, and when I talk to them about my research, which is pretty relevant to them, they're really interested in it. I mean, in research and in research-informed teaching, as we call it, they like that. And they seem to me that we've got quite a few programs at UAEU for undergraduates to do research projects in the summer, and they get a little stipend. It does encourage them. And we also have one of the national programs of teaching assistants. So the problem, I think, for business is that we get people who are clever and motivated, but they don't think that being an academic's a very not a very lucrative pathway. And especially because we're training people who are really good in data or statistics or other forms of marketing, or teaching them how to commercialize ideas, then they don't want to work in academics. They want to work in business. So even if we have students that come through and they study abroad, I mean, in our department, we've got one student who's studying at Oxford, and he's lovely. He's so clever. He speaks English beautifully. I mean, he's a total winner. But we'll struggle to retain him in our college when he comes back, because he'll have so many opportunities. I mean, everybody will want him. And he'll have so many opportunities outside that it will be hard for us to keep him. So even if he likes research, he probably still, as Dr. Saad says, sees it as something he can do, but is not necessarily going to operationalize it as an academic. Yeah, I think that this is an issue. But we are training more and more students in research and thinking about how to do research. We revamp our programs regularly, and we're trying to introduce digitization to the different levels. I think that in a College of Business, it's really important, because business is really dynamic and moves really fast. So we have to move fast too. I mean, our students have to be able to do this stuff. So, I mean, we're doing that, but, and I think they're interested, but I don't know if they see it as a pathway of work. I mean, or as, yeah, I mean, even when I talk to them about the different market research companies here, what they could do, what they could learn, they don't see it as, I think they don't see it as very interesting, which I mean is just such a barrier, because it's totally interesting, but also that they don't see what they can do with it. I mean, where they can go with it. Yeah, I think this is a problem, because they've got a lot of enthusiasm when they're young, and they pick up the skills well. And of course, they're natural with, I mean, they're much better than us with thinking and seeing opportunities of digitization or technologies, or, I mean, their whole thinking about it so much better than ours. Yeah, that it would be good to bring these two things together to, I don't know, there's a gap. I think there's a gap, because most of us who are teaching it, even if we're, quite good at research and are not, scared of trying to set up our own computer. I mean, we're perfectly functional, but we don't see it in the same way that they do, as in terms of how the abstract can be made manifest as something useful for business or for opportunity, or we can't see it the way they see it. So there's a gap between us and them.
I echo what you're saying, is that, I mean, the students, when you tell them about what we do as researchers in social sciences and business and education fields, like, they are very interested. However, what they don't seem to have is a pathway from where they are to how they could end up in that position. And I think I have my position at Khalifa University. I teach mostly students who are in engineering, and they very clearly see a pathway from their undergraduate engineering degree in petroleum engineering and then to go work in a big company like ADNOC or something, right? I mean, that's that, but the trajectory of how do you become the director of the research at a government agency, that I think that is a bit of a mystery. And so I wanted to ask you, Professor Ali, like how therefore can we, any suggestions for how we can attract and retain the best youth to work in academics, to work as researchers?
Thank you very much for the question. I think I have the good news and the not so good news. The good news is that when I used to talk about research 15, 17 years ago, not many people were interested in particular students because they thought it was abstract, distant, theoretical, something, coming from Western countries or whatever, not related to them. Nowadays, I can say many graduate and undergraduate students talking about research, interested in research, attending research conferences and research symposia and forums, which is good. And therefore, they are attracted. One good example, my son is in his 4th year in the aerospace engineering at the UAE University. And last month, he just came to me, to my study room at home, and he was just, so excited that I got a paper published with my professor and other undergraduate students and one graduate student in the Q1 journal. So that was absolutely wonderful achievement. He was undergraduate 7, 10, 15 years ago. We never heard of that. So that was the good news. The not so good news is that, let me just refer to what Dr. Habibul mentioned, knowledge for what book. Now, I asked the question of knowledge for who? We researchers, we are becoming, unfortunately, in many ways, more and more distant from society. Now, typically, there are 3 audiences for our research to disseminate knowledge. We have the research community for researchers, like-minded people like you and me. We have the professional community, people on the ground, people in the classroom, people in hospitals, and we have the public. Most of our research, unfortunately, we are targeting Q1, Q2 only to get cited, to get impact, and to be cited by other researchers. We are not very much there reaching professional community on the ground. I mentioned before, I'm coordinator of the Master of Education program, and many of our students who are now teachers and principals, vice principals, head of departments, they tell me that we have very little application and implication of what we do at the university, even in terms of research on the ground, not to mention the public. So really, we need to, when we say knowledge for, then knowledge for who, not only knowledge for what, but of course, knowledge for who. It is not only for researchers, but for professionals and for the wider public. And this way, I think the best way we need to move the research forward so that it becomes really informed society in terms of research. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Saad, when we say knowledge for what and knowledge for who, the Department of Community Development has a very clear mandate. And so it is very clear why the researchers in the DCD are doing what they do. How can we attract the best researchers to come and work in an agency, public agency, such as the ministries or the departments, the emirate level, and so on?
So it ties in with what you mentioned earlier about the career paths. So far, the career paths are pretty much unknown. What we can do is that we can have closer and stronger collaborations between the industry and between academic programs, just to clarify and remove any kind of fog on these pathways. Because as you said, when it comes to engineering, a student really understands where he or she will get to in a few years' time. But as a profession in social research or any other kind of research, it is still not clear. Now, being in this culture where still the culture of research is still growing, it might even pose as a different layer of a challenge to attract people into social research. So a starting point is research and development. Now, research and development is, from what I've noticed, this is a conception that is understood from a wide segment of students. They do understand what research and development is, and they understand that at the end of research and development, there's always a product. So to me, the one tool that we can use to attract, let's say, a carrot, to attract students is through the research and development field. It has a very clear pathway when it comes to research, and it has very specific research skill sets that can spill over into many other research fields. Because when it comes to students, again, as Dr. Ali said, abstract notions push them away. But research and development offers the opposite. It consolidates all of these theories into an actual product. So to me, the main tool is the research and development field, and you can notice that there are many agencies in the country right now focused specifically on research and development. So I would recommend all stakeholders and actors to either piggyback on the R&D trend or collaborate with R&D agencies to attract more students into the research field. That is my perspective so far.
Thank you so much. Well, I wanted to make sure to leave time for any questions from the audience. So I would like to start with the people in the room. If you have any questions, we have a gentleman here with his hand up.
Well, thank you very much for this interesting discussion and encouraging words about using open access and publications. I want to clarify one thing that was mentioned by Professor Habibullah, to tell him that most of the publications that were made free to access during COVID, you won't find it again now. It's in a closed access. It was free access, but not open access at that time. The publishers made it available to everyone, but most of the publications were subscription publishing. Okay, so just to make to clarify the difference between free access and open access. So some publishers, from time to time, they make their closed access publications free for users. The other thing that I would like to mention, well, this is very good to let students know about open access and how to select their journals and where to find the information, more than how to search for the information. Locating the proper and relevant database or publication is more important now than how to search for information. We need to work more as institutions, as individuals, on trying to grant the repositories and the databases that will take care of these open access publications, because these publications need to be categorized, need to be indexed, need to be looked after. So it's not enough just to encourage people or researchers as institutions, I'm talking, to publish in open access, but academic institutions should be supportive to repositories, open access repositories, and open access databases. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gentleman in the front.
Thank you very much. It was very informative. I'm Khalid Ali. I work in higher education. For me, it was very interesting, you know, because we face the same challenges in the regions also. I have a question which is a little bit personal, and then the other question is to all of them. The first question, Dr. Habibul, I have a son who graduated from one of the best universities in AI and was given a job by Google and Microsoft. But he refused to take the job and came back home. He said, "That is not safe to live there. I prefer to sleep in a house where I keep my door open and my car key is in my car," and like this. I was trying to convince him that that's the beginning and it's a big career. Of course, he also has other things that I have also, business opportunities. That's most of the Gulf, people who thinks in this area. So that's personal. I'm saying, yes, why some of our students, they prepare here and they want to go because of the challenges they think they will face in their life. Since I have the microphone, my question in general is about academia. Unfortunately, a lot of universities, we don't have a clear research path for faculties. They come and they bombard them with courses to teach. You cannot combine the two together. I think we need, in the academic, those who have the talent to distinguish those who are really good in research, to put them in the research track, and those who are good more in teaching, to put them there with research. I'm not saying even the researcher can do, but can do much less than the other. Unfortunately, I know that a lot of people, who are good researcher, they complain that they have a heavy load in teaching and like this, and they cannot. Of course, I don't know. The system where I live is that you can buy your time. Yes, you're getting grants, then you can buy your time. Where I can drop one course, but you pay for someone to come and teach that course. That's the way it works in grants. Okay, so that's a general question. I don't know if it's everywhere, but we need to develop a real good path for researcher from the day they come to their institutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I was actually using you as an example to my students earlier today. I told them, in a classroom discussion, that why don't we have researchers? And my students said, we are a new country. The researchers are all from UK and France. I said, not true. I met a brilliant researcher yesterday, and he's from Qatar. And not only he's a researcher, his wife is also a researcher. And they were surprised. I said, it's next door. So do not give me any excuses. Thank you very much.
If I may comment on that, I think what you said, Doctor, it is very much tied with what we mentioned earlier, where we said that currently the perception of research, it is a skill rather than a profession. We can see that in the practice of universities, where they enforce these standards and expect that research can be done as a side thing along with teaching. So you see this being extended into the general community, general population later on. And to me, it is all part of what Dr. Habibul mentioned, that the culture of research is not yet there. We're still growing. As we advance in this culture, we will see universities dedicating enough time for researchers, dedicating enough time for teaching, looking at them as two distinct streams rather than something that faculty members can combine. So you're absolutely right. Maybe it should start with the universities, dedicating more time to researchers. And that way it will give it the emphasis and importance that will later on spill over to the community. Because a faculty member can proudly say then that I'm a researcher. Oh, do you teach? No, I don't teach. I only do research at a university. And that will slowly develop this culture over time. I guess that is a very viable point that we can work on.
Dr. Ali?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to say that at the UAE University, and the Tarasha, maybe you know that, we have 3 tracks. We have the research track, we have the teaching track, and we have the standard track. So the research track, you have more time for research, less time for teaching, fewer, maybe lighter load. And for the teaching track, you are also expected to do research, but the main focus of your work is teaching, and we have the standard track. I think we are quite happy with that. However, we still have an issue with the admin work. So, for example, I'm coordinator of a master education program, and I was department chair for 5 years. Admin work takes more than 50%, at least 50% of your time. So we are really working hard to reduce admin work, committee work, and meetings, things like that. But the university is recognizing the importance of research and giving us lighter load for researchers. So everyone has to fall into one of the 3 categories, either research track or teaching track or the standard track. Maybe Dr. Aisha can comment on this as well.
Yep. I'm also at UAEU, and I was also the chair. The chair jobs are very busy. Takes up a lot of time. I would say 50% easy. It makes it really hard to do research. And when you're the chair, I mean, it's okay. I'm from New Zealand. In New Zealand, every bit of your work is part of your workload. So if you were the chair, you would have, I mean, most chairs don't teach or teach one section, but we would always teach more than that here. And also the administrative work for the chair is really, it's a lot. We still have to produce our research. So it's not balanced in the same way as it is abroad. And of course, I teach heaps more here than I ever taught in New Zealand. Even when I was like a graduate, like a studentship, I taught less than I teach now. So I do think it's a problem. I think that the understanding of how long it takes to do research and how you need to have blocked time where you aren't interrupted to produce it is probably a reflection of the early stage of the research development, right? But I do think that in the Gulf we work really hard. I mean, academics work really hard, put a lot of hours in to lots of things that aren't really to do with either their teaching or their research. And it would be better if it was less. Yeah, but we would produce better and better quality and more research if there was less. Yeah.
And Dr. Aizhan wants to make a statement too, and then after that we have a online question coming in.
Yeah, I think we need to have clear career path for young scholars as well, because those students who graduate with their PhDs, they're not clear where to go, because what we are required during PhD programs to do research, right? So publish more, collaborate more, do this, and we don't focus on teaching. Unfortunately, by the end of the PhD program, suddenly we want to, looking for the job, right? Trying to find opportunities. And we see that the requirement for the assistant professor job is you need to have minimum 2 years of teaching experience, right? I was like, what? What about research? I've been doing so many years. I have so many publications and collaborations. And they said, yeah, unfortunately, yeah, we cannot hire you. You need to teach, and teach not somewhere, or part-time. It should be full-time teaching experience at the higher educational institutions. And then, all right, so I need to plan again my full career, right? So you go and teach. Probably if we, as a young scholars, we're clear from the beginning what we need, what we're expected to have as employment in academia, PhD programs can be prepared, better, and it's going to be the whole, new cycle of working experience as scholars. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We're going to go to an online question, please.
Yeah, we have here a couple of online questions from the audience. I will read them, and then probably some of the panelists will answer them. So they are quite close to each other. So do you think that academia is institutionally accessible? It seems that many Arab students don't know how the hierarchies of academia work and how to go about becoming academics. How can we work to raise awareness about the career trajectories and paths in academia? So that was a question from Karim Nasser. And another question from Chesson. Do you think the hierarchical nature of academia discourages students from a career in research?
Thank you very much for this anonymous question. Let me answer by saying that one of the things that we academics working in UAE or in GCC, we need to break is the stereotypes about quote unquote Arab students. We need to break that. Again, I'll tell you a story. I was telling my students that 10 years ago, I was invited to a very important conference at Harvard. And the conference was organized by someone I knew teaching at University. And I asked them, tell me, where is she from? They were just scratching their head. I said, she was from Saudi Arabia. A Saudi Arabian graduate of Harvard University organized a conference on Middle East at Harvard. And they were surprised. So this breaks the stereotype. And again, like we're bombarded with teaching assignments, teaching load and research, but there is a will to research, will to do research. And here I have two examples sitting here in this room, Tatiana, Glenn. They're very active researchers, and I'm sure they're teaching also heavily, so it can be done, but we need to break the stereotype. Many of the GCC students, I met one at Cambridge this summer at the Gulf Research Meeting. She asked and she commented the most brilliant comments in the whole group. Later on, I found out she is from UAE and now teaching at Glasgow, a PhD from Cambridge. So we really need to track them where they are and what they're capable of. Thank you.
If I may say something, however, see, there's also this bias that the research is coming from somewhere else. I have the approved textbook for Introduction to Sociology, which does not even mention Ibn Khaldun, okay? And so here I am in the Middle East teaching to most of my students at KU are 90% Emiratis. And I said, how can I possibly stand here and tell them all of this is sort of originating in Germany, France, and so on, right? When the great-grandfather of social sciences is North African Islamic scholar, right? And so, this is somehow, like, I think important for my students to understand that this is not something that's imported. It's not something that's brought from the outside. It's something that the world needs to have different perspectives. We already know the perspective of British academics. We already know the perspective of American academics. We need the perspective of the MENA region academics, South Asian academics, African academics, and so on. So this is one of the reasons why I'm here, actually, is to engage in a more global conversation around social sciences. So I'm supposed to be the moderator, but I felt this one I wanted to comment on. So thank you. Others, please.
Of course, I feel strongly about this. One of my research areas is Islamic marketing. I love marketing. Marketing, it's everything. I mean, to do with everything. But I think it's really important. My students are, sometimes I think that the stereotype thing is a problem because they think that it's, the lost golden days of Islam, like not the present. But of course, this isn't the case. I mean, the foundations of plenty of knowledge are, from the golden age of everywhere. And the golden age from Muslim scholars especially is really underrepresented. So, for example, marketing, right? Marketing is an American sort of culture, organically cultured subject. So I teach, for example, a huge chapter on the self to my students. This is from my textbook. It's a great textbook. It's good. But the concept of the individuated self is not really a big thing here. I mean, it's not, and for most of the world, it's not really a big thing. So the amount of the contribution that the students could make to, like, the understanding of the self, the relational self, how collective societies operate, the continuum of individualism to collectivism, to marketing is so great. And when I talk to them about it, this is our American textbook. This is how you are marketed to. So you can understand how you're marketed to, but it's not necessarily relevant for you. And research that you do on this is going to contribute to the understanding of all of this stuff for everybody. I mean, every bit of research is of benefit to every group. I mean, this is how I think about it. So there's a whole lot of things that need to be, that can be kind of contributed back to the mainstream, especially English language literature on all of, especially business subjects and social sciences, as you say. that the students can contribute to as well. So I think this is really important. I mean, it's also the case with Indigenous cultures. There's lots of different ways to think about value. There's lots of different ways to think about benefit and what the point of business is, and how entrepreneurship can be about something more than profit, but about community engagement and, you know, interacting with nature and supporting all kinds of different values than just money. Yeah, and this is largely lost in especially English language literature. I mean, I couldn't really say about other language literature, but in English language literature, things are pretty hegemonic, and there's a lot that can be contributed. So in my research work, I do a lot of things about Emirati women. The way that these women think about business is so different. And this is because, of course, of culture. Yeah, I mean, there's huge contributions to be made.
Apologize, we're out of time, and
Some more questions.
some more questions. I thought we were
One
out
or
of
two.
time.
Yeah. One and two quickly.
We have one or two questions. Okay, please. I'm sorry, I thought we were out.
Thank you, panelists, for this wonderful discussion. I'm right here. Here. My name is Reem Unison, and I'm an R&D consultant. So I'd like to start off with a comment about what Dr. Saad was talking about earlier during the panel, followed by a question. So we're talking about attracting students into research. Yet what I'm hearing is different sectors operating in silos. So we're very focused on academia right now, and academia is only looking at what academia is doing in terms of R&D and research, mostly research, because academia is focused on basic research. And then we have a government representative here. Thank you for being here and for discussing the government sector's opinion about this. But because we're operating in a continuum from basic research to applied research to experimental development. So what I think is lacking from the discussion, or what's not being applied, is how are we placing those students in a job market based on their own interests? So if the student's not interested in academia, maybe they're interested in work that's happening in the government or in industry. So what role are the different sectors playing in talking to each other?
Well, thank you for that, and that is a very important point, and it is such a complex and multi-layered question. Like I mentioned earlier, stronger collaborations between the industry and the academic institutions is the first step. Now, I don't want to lean on this point, but it might explain why right now it seems like sectors are not talking to each other. Because of the fact that we are a new country, a lot of the growth that we went through has not been organic. It has been rapid, very fast, and beyond our comprehension. So what we ended up with is that we have very advanced sectors that have grown overnight, and part of the talking to each other, that is the organic part. So right now we just have to stop, reflect on these important questions like what you just asked, and ask ourselves, why aren't we talking to each other? But then again, one of the purposes of these conferences is to bring multiple stakeholders, multiple actors together to initiate these conversations. What I said earlier about the fact that R&D is a prime example of attracting students to research, this is something I truly believe in, and we can definitely have a discussion about that. To us, in our culture, we lean towards what's visual, what we can see as a product, and R&D offers that. So you are absolutely right. There might be some challenges in working in silos. However, we have taken very confident steps, like for example, this conference, in trying to mend that gap and get these different players closer together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saad. That's very insightful. We have one final question, please.
Yes, very quick. I have like a very final question to finish the panel. I want everyone speaker to say only one word, okay? Imagine yourself as a student. So how can you characterize academic career in the student's perception? So what do you say in one word? What is it for them?
Okay, I will start. Curiosity.
Ambition.
Influence.
Okay. Research.
Fame for yourself and your country.
One word.
And I always tell my students, why not you? Why not you? Okay, so thank you so much. I have some of my favorite people on this panel, and it's nice to, a couple I'm meeting for the first time in person, but others I've known for some time. And so thank you for being here. It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you to Dr. Tatiana for organizing our panel, and thank you to the Forum for giving us this space. Thank you all. Let's please give some appreciation to our panelists.